Oh, hello. If you grew up in the 90s, there's a good chance that this movie just appeared in your house one day. No trip to Blockbuster, no Sunday night ABC promo, just poof, there it was, sitting next to the VCR like it always belonged there. A movie called The ButterCream Gang. And somehow it seemed like every family had it. Now, I hadn't thought about this movie in years, but the second I saw the VHS cover, it hit me like a Capri Sun to the face. I used to have a much jankier version of this VHS tape when I was a kid. It looked like this. However, when I decided to reclaim my childhood on eBay, I went with this unopened and alternatively illustrated version of the tape. I snatched it up, and a week or so later, it came in the mail. I gotta tell you, I was excited, okay? The bike gang with good manners, the kid with the bandana and only one button collar at the top, going through his mild rebellion era. Was this even a style back then, by the way? I think it was, but I don't know. I never saw it at my school, okay? But my school was really podunk. It's not just the movie that's fascinating, it's how this movie got into our homes in the first place. Not just this movie, but a lot of movies just like it. Because the ButterCream Gang wasn't some Hollywood release. It came from a company that built an empire by literally mailing morality tales to people on VHS tapes. But here's the kicker. They made a sequel to the ButterCream Gang. The ButterCream Gang in Secret of Treasure Mountain. Same gang, totally different vibe. Somehow we went from small town morality tale to Spanish treasure epic on a budget. Today we're breaking down both of these relics. The original ButterCream Gang and the Indiana Jones for Sunday School sequel that you probably didn't even know existed. But first, let's look at the VHS morality machine itself. The company was called Feature Films for Families. Let's just call it Triple F for short, okay? It was founded in the late 80s by a guy named Forrest S. Baker III, a devout Mormon from Utah who looked at Hollywood and asked, "Could it be Satan?" So he started his own film company to make movies that were clean, uplifting, and aggressively non-threatening. No sex, no swearing, no violence, just gentle life lessons and lots of striped shirts. Now here's the wild part. He didn't go the usual route with theaters and video stores. Instead, Baker built a telemarketing empire. His team would cold call parents across the country and pitch them VHS tapes. Like literally call your landline and say things like, "Hey, would you like a heartwarming story about honesty and personal growth delivered to your doorstep? It's for kids." It's for kids. And parents, especially the ones who were over Hollywood's bad influence, said, "Sure, why not?" It was a simpler time. My parents were early adopters of this company until later on when Triple F wouldn't stop calling the house. I mean, really, how many copies of Seasons of the Heart do we really need? So the company started mailing out tapes, and one of the earliest, most popular ones was the ButterCream Gang. It was pure moral comfort food. A small town group of boys doing good deeds while one of them goes bad and has to be saved by friendship, loyalty, and chores. In Utah, it was practically required viewing. Now, I'm not from Utah, but I did grow up in a Christian home. My parents decided to get a whole slew of these videos. Such titles as Split Infinity, Seasons of the Heart, Rogue Stallion, Scamper the Penguin, Rigoletto, Friendship's Field, and many, many more. And the company behind it? They ended up getting sued by the FTC for calling 117 million people and hounding them about buying their movies. That's later though. First, let's dive into the first ButterCream Gang movie, shall we? It starts off with a surprise party in a treehouse. The titular ButterCream Gang is seeing their oldest member off before he moves to Chicago. When I say older, I mean older, because this guy looks like he's in his early 20s, and the other kids look like they're 13. The Buttercreamers consist of Scott, Lanny, and Eldon. This guy is Pete. So anyway, Pete gets on a bus and leaves for other adventures. Good old-fashioned bike riding ensues, but this doesn't last long because an emergency game of Earthquake goes into session. This is Eldon's real specialty, being so fat that everyone wants him to pretend like a simple fall would cause earth-shattering damage. Hey, it's the Earthquake guy! He's really not that fat, by the way. I don't know why they chose him for this humiliating ritual. Scotty misses Pete and writes him a letter. This is when we see that Pete is doing really well over there in Chi-Town. This letter back and forth thing keeps happening throughout the movie. Try to imagine a time where everyone used to communicate through the mail, which makes sense considering everyone was watching this movie through the mail. I don't understand why Scott and Pete don't just talk on the phone, but, maybe it's a long distance thing, phone call thing. As time goes on, we see that Pete is now a full-fledged gangster. I mean, look at how his very intimidating gang dresses. The dude with the wide-brimmed hat over his bandana is almost as intimidating as the 10-year-old kid. Pete's aunt has had enough of his scallywag ways and informs him that he has to move back home with his grandpa. Pete has a resemblance to Paul Reubens, the guy who played Pee Wee Herman. There, now you can't unsee it. So later on, our boys are having baseball practice. It sets up a recurring theme of them singing, "You got the right one, baby.
You got the right one, baby.
Even though I don't believe Pepsi was a sponsor on this one, Pepsis are displayed multiple times along with this song.
You got the right one, baby.
But like a bat signal in the sky, except it's Scotty's little sister, the ButterCream Gang is called into action. This time for something more serious than a game of earthquake.
It's the Widow Jenkins! She fell down again!
You can just see the writer of this thing grabbing that plot point from the infamous infomercial where the lady fell down and can't get up.
I've fallen, and I can't get up!
You ever write a movie while watching infomercials? This guy did. Who wrote this thing? Okay, they don't even tell you on the back of the VHS.
Hi, Scott. Hi, Lenny. Bye, Eldon.
Why are these off-screen girls giving shade to Eldon? Hey, Earthquake Boy!
You're fired!
Once they finally arrive all the way across town, they break into the Widow Jenkins' garage to find some rope. Wait, you're telling me Scotty's sister ran all the way across town just to tell them that the Widow Jenkins fell down? And she didn't even consider calling the cops? Phones were a widely used tool at this point, It's not like it's the late 1800s. Pick up a phone and call the cops, okay? Scotty decides to Mission Impossible his way to the second floor with the help of Lanny and Eldon. But they can't quite support Scotty on their own, so all the kids in the neighborhood come to the rescue. So they help Miss Jenkins up, and she instantly asks them to go on an errand for her at the local grocery store.
I do need some things from the store, boys, if you have time.
Ah, the days before Uber Eats. They go over to the grocery store, and we meet an ex-Buttercreamer named Mr. Graff at his store. By the way, the reason they're called the ButterCream Gang is because the OG gang helped a bunch of widows churn their butter into cream. We meet Scotty's love interest, Margaret, at school. Oh, and a little before that, when Scotty flirts with her in a typical small-town way. She's doing a report on Chicago gangs. Mean-looking ones.
It's because they're a real gang, not like you guys.
I do think they deserve a cooler name, by the way. If my cousin was a buttercreamer and he came to town and we went to a bar or something, and he kept talking about all the buttercreaming business he does back home, I'd say, shh, don't talk so loud. The buttercreaming you do at home is your business, okay? After school, the boys find out that Pete is back home, and now he looks different. And he gets judged for it. Hard.
What happened to you?
Fortunately for Pete, he can't read the room. Pete says they look different too. No, they don't. They look exactly the same as they did at the beginning of this movie. In fact, Scotty wears this type of shirt almost the entire movie. I guess when you have to mail order your shirts, like the VHS tape we're watching, there are only so many options. So Pete takes them to Mr. Graff's to steal some treats, Chicago style. Scotty knows something's up. Later that night, Pete somehow sneaks into Scotty's room. Once again, the writers refer to a commercial here.
This old lady falls down and she says, "I've fallen down and I can't get up."
I'm telling you, the writer was watching a lot of TV during the writing of this movie, specifically infomercials.
"I've fallen down and I can't get up. I've fallen down and I can't get up."
Scotty's sister overhears how Pete stole the treats from Mr. Graff's store. Actually, Scotty's sister is always everywhere all the time. Someone's mowing the lawn outside. You had all week to do it there, Frank, and you just had to mow the lawn right now. Or maybe it's a buttercreamer. In that case, get off my lawn. We're just going to keep moving. Why was she even over at Miss Jenkins' house to begin with? That lady doesn't seem like she's coordinated enough to entertain kids on her property. Anyway, Scotty's sister organizes her own little gang of do-gooders to spy on Pete to see what kind of shenanigans he's up to. we see Pete making friends with some bad kids at school. They set trash on fire, kick little kids off of seesaws, steal lunches. Just like back in Chicago, I'm guessing. After finding out about this, Eldon and Lanny have turned their backs on Pete. They want to kick him out of the ButterCream Gang because he won't spend his free time doing chores for everyone around town. I can see why Pete has been so repressed all this time. After Margaret makes Scott take her to the school dance,
Pick me up at 7 and don't be late.
Pete decides to harass her with his pals, so Scotty comes to the rescue. Later at the dance, Pete and his buddies get ready for their revenge. Makes you wonder, why don't they have any dates? Why are they never around girls? Maybe they're just sad. Why won't anyone help them out in this town?
Alright, we're gonna slow things down a bit.
It's crazy that they flew this Aussie DJ all the way out to Elk Ridge in the middle of nowhere, America for this dance.
So I want to see you with that beautiful young lady or that handsome young man.
How much could they possibly be paying him? There's so little happening in this town that full-fledged adults attend school dances. Anyway, Pete throws firecrackers at Margaret's feet. There's a quick showdown where everyone shows their teeth at each other. Honestly, my money would be on Scott and the boys. They're bigger than the bullies. They know how to break into a house better than these posers. Also, in 2 seconds, they could have every kid in town tear Pete's little gang into a million pieces. It's time for the two gangs to settle this. Scotty does the unthinkable.
I challenge you to spend the day with me tomorrow. That's if you've got the guts.
This movie is so wholesome, but you know something? I don't hate it. You know, I know I'm making fun of it, but it's, I don't know. I still have the nostalgia running through my veins on this one. After a full day of hanging out, we see that Pete's defenses are starting to crack. Unfortunately, later on, Pete and Scott have a falling out again. And this is key because Pete says he's pissed because he never got anything in return for all his years as a buttercreamer around town. You're telling me you never asked Pete what went down to make him change so drastically? Well, do that, you know? Obviously, something very wrong went down to make him shift his personality so much over less than a year. What do you think happened to Pete in Chicago? Let it out in the comments. After a baseball game that didn't go well, the baseball coach, town preacher guy, hints that Scotty should only retaliate against Pete in non-violent ways. Which is terrible advice because right after this, Scotty gets the living hell beat out of him by Pete and the gang.
Don't you ever, ever, ever threaten me.
No!
Stick to preaching and coaching baseball, okay? Stay out of gang disputes. It's out of your jurisdiction. After telling Mr. Graff that Pete's been stealing from him, Mr. Graff tells Scott that he already knew that, and that from now on he's just gonna give Pete free stuff until forever.
I decided that a little love and patience is more important than a few pennies profit.
Mr. Graff is a sweet guy, but a terrible businessman. That model is gonna make him go out of business real fast. Scott's so preoccupied with Pete's shenanigans that he doesn't realize Margaret switched to contacts. Luckily for us, things start going apeshit real quick.
I think somebody broke into Pete's house.
Sure?
No, but I left Eldon there to watch.
Lanny grabs Scott and Margaret, and they go to Pete's house where Eldon is acting as a lookout. And Eldon has the balls to ask where his milkshake is.
Where's my milkshake?
Hey,
I love this kid. I love it. Why does no one call the cops in this town? Do they even have cops in this town? Anyway, we see that Pete and his grandpa are getting held up by a pantyhose-wearing criminal. He wants grandpa's gold coins or he's gonna do something bad. Real bad. So the gang swings into action. Scotty's sister grabs the bad guy's pantyhose off his head and orders a dog pile on him. Then Eldon runs in and does his signature earthquake move on the guy. Look how hard he jumps on him. That probably caused some serious internal damage. Also, make Scotty's sister an honorary buttercreamer at this point. She works just as hard as the boys, but gets none of the credit. It turns out that Pete was pulling a scam on his grandpa. He hired the bad guy to come and get the gold coins and act like he was going to hurt Pete. Bad! Bad! So Pete runs to Mr. Graff's to rob him, but Mr. Graff just gives him all the money in the register.
Now here's $274. Is that enough?
Pete starts losing it. He can't stand how nice everyone is. They should send criminals to this town for punishment. I guess too much of a good thing can drive you nuts. Man, what happened to this kid in Chicago? I got buttercreamed. Oh look, there's an actual cop in town. He must have a lot of downtime in this place. What with the buttercreamers stealing all the good crimes. So anyway, Pete goes back to Chicago. The ending is really strange. Almost a year later, Scott finally realizes that Margaret got contacts.
I'm really proud of you.
No, seriously though, Scott comes home and he's greeted by a bunch of very sad members of his community. They read him a letter as if Pete died tragically or something. It turns out Pete's doing much better in Chicago and has started his own ButterCream Gang. Why did everyone play mind games with Scott like this? They're all trying to win an Oscar over here, when they could have just told him that Pete's been thriving in Chicago.
You got the right one, baby.
Pepsi, give this movie a sponsorship already, okay?
Oh, he wants to make sure that we tell Mr. Graff he's sorry. You can send him $20.
I think he's still way more than that, but it's a start. Margaret kisses Scott, and then they're all informed that
It's the widow Jenkins! She fell down again!
it's time for her to go to a nursing home, okay? I'm sorry, that's terrible, but at this point, she's just a liability. And that, my friends, is the ButterCream Gang. But Triple F didn't stop there. Nope. The following year, they doubled down and said, what if these morally upright boys found a Spanish treasure map? Because when you can't top Pete's redemption arc, you pivot to Conquistador Gold Hunt. A Conquistador Gold Hunt. Just a side note here, I think Pete, the guy who played Pete, was a solid actor. I believed him, he did his best with the material, and let's see how it does without his presence. The sequel is called Secret of Treasure Mountain. It starts in 1562, Elk Ridge. A conquistador and his two hired hands are hauling some treasure up the side of a mountain. An Indian guy warns them non-verbally, and then turns around and shows his butt, which is like a bad omen or something. This conquistador dude threatens a priest in a cave for some reason, and then they bury the treasure. I don't really know what's going on, but let's just move to later on in the present day. Our boy Eldon is water skiing poorly. This guy is continuing his reign as the underdog of this group. I'm telling you right now, he better get more respect this time around. Last time he nearly killed a guy by earthquaking him. I expect more of that in this one. Anyway, a little girl almost meets a tragic end, and Eldon tries to save her, but he's worthless and falls into the water. Okay, maybe he won't have his redemption arc in this one. Scotty saves the day. On the back of the VHS tape, there's a bunch of questions and something that they call a parent's guide. One of the questions is, why did Eldon feel like the buttercream clown? Because he's the comic relief, you wrote him that way. He's the guy who's known for earthquaking because he's a little overweight. The whole thing in this movie is that Eldon is getting envious of Scott for always getting the spotlight. It's getting him down in the dumps. Why are so many blonde kids roaming the mountainside on this day? It just goes to show you that there are more kids in this town than adults. When Eldon tries to scale a mountain without any rope or protective wear, he slips and slides down the mountainside. On his way down, he steadies himself with what turns out to be a treasure map. We also find out that Mr. Graff has to sell his house because he had a heart attack and he's poor from giving all of his inventory to Pete for free in the first movie. Also, in this movie, I don't like how all the buttercreamers are mostly preschool kids now. What's with that? A rich couple shows up at Mr. Graff's house. This lady is a creep.
Well, Eldon, you get a kiss and a hug from me, huh?
Can't believe she actually kissed me.
Her husband's used to it, though.
Relax, kid. She kisses her dog, too.
The rich guy is named
Don Del Ditto, cash flow expert, millionaire, but
I thought his name was Don Del Dildo at first, but it seems like this guy is based on the owner of Triple F. He's got a mail-in business that sounds pretty familiar, doesn't it?
Look, kid, if you don't have the money now, when you get it, mail it in and I'll send you the book.
So anyway, Eldon decides to do something about Mr. Graff's predicament. Throughout the movie, Eldon has a bunch of dream sequences of him getting congratulated by everyone. This particular daydream centers on Margaret making eyes at him and Scott getting really jealous. Later on, Eldon's uncle Will invites the bad guy over to verify whether the map is real or not. I just want to point out that this part of the movie was one of the many early run-ins I had with ASMR in movies. Listen. So this guy, Dr. Almodovar. So this guy, Dr. Almodovar, tries to bamboozle. Okay, fuck you. So this guy, Dr. Almodovar, tries to bamboozle everyone by saying it's just an old farm map, but he's obviously lying about it. He offers $100 for it, but Eldon decides to keep it instead. And also, Eldon starts a lemonade stand, but he's such a goody-goody that he gives away all of his products for free. Terrible businessman, really. He's been hanging around Mr. Graff too long. Look at this kid's job. He's just there to pull people up and down the treehouse. What's in this for you, kid? Oh, it's multiple kids. I'm starting to see why the Buttercreamers keep all these kids around now. Free labor. One night, Dr. Almodovar's lovable henchmen break into the school to steal Eldon's half of the treasure map. Luckily, Margaret and this little girl snatch it back from them. This town is so wholesome that kids just hang around school property for no reason during the late hours of the night. I forgot to mention that these henchmen are descendants of the ones we saw at the beginning, and their gene pool is really shallow because they all look the exact same as they did in the 1500s. So now the Buttercreamers all know that the treasure map is legit. How do you say his name? Almodovar tries to come off like a good guy, but people are suspicious of him. This guy looks like Jim Caviezel, doesn't he? Just with less hair in the front. Now Eldon has to find the other third of the map. It's adventure time, friends. Scott and Lanny go off to hunt for treasure, but Eldon's conscience gets the better of him, and he decides to stay behind and help Mr. Graff paint his house. But while he's there, he finds a clue to where he can find the last third of the map. It's at a monastery 10 miles up the road. They have that in that town? Man, they don't even have like a stop sign, but they have a monastery? Look at the henchman's disguises here. Look, it's like a painting, see? Mr. Graff must think it's the real painting. That's like trying to blend in at a gallery as the Mona Lisa, but you're just dressed up as Mona Lisa and standing up against a white wall. They'll never see me. They find a monk at the monastery who's willing to help them on their adventure, and then they walk down this corridor twice. This exact same corridor. The filmmakers try to make it look like it's multiple hallways, but they didn't have enough money, or the space they were renting wasn't big enough. I knew money was tight on these movies, I just didn't know how tight. Monk guy starts spouting some exposition while making some cozy food for our boys, which makes the scene much better in my opinion. Anytime there's food in movies, it's a plus. On the way back through the one and only corridor that the movie makers could afford, they narrowly avoid the two henchmen, which leads them down to the basement where, you guessed it, they find the final part of the treasure map. The henchman sort of attacks the monk guy.
Careful of crumpet? Oh my.
Actually, what the heck is going on here? It's so awkward. What is the monk saying, oh my, to? The off-screen hand is obviously reaching for a pear. You offered a crumpet, but you're shocked when someone wants fruit? What kind of generosity is that? Now Eldon and Eli have to get the treasure map out of a dead monk's hands. Why is a dead monk just laying there in the basement? They just skim over this fact because, well, they found the treasure now. Who cares about the dead corpse that's been laying there since the 1500s? I'd know that forehead anywhere. It's Jim Oh. So our heroes are tied up now, and Almodovar and company escape with the full map.
Are you sure they're here?
Well, I don't know. Mr. Duncan said they were.
Why does Margaret only hang out with 10-year-olds? Eldon decides to redraw the map from memory and heads out on his own, but the gang follows him because friends stick together.
You don't turn your back on family.
Shut up. I'm starting to think that kid is secretly Margaret and Scotty's bastard child. While going across a river, this bridge breaks and the danger that we're promised ends as soon as it begins. Seriously, within about 5 seconds.
I'm okay. I'll see you guys in a bit.
Flash forward to the mountain where Eldon is in a race against time to get the treasure before the evil trio get to it first. He finds it really fast though because at this point the movie producers knew they were down to their last $5. But as we all expected, the bad guys get there first, and surprise, there's nothing but some papers in the chest. Almodovar is upset and tries to hit a child, but the likable henchmen step in. Look, Eldon finds the treasure, okay? Eldon finds the treasure. The treasure is just sitting a little further up into the cave. It's just propped up by 2 chairs, really obviously. No wonder Almodovar and his lineage couldn't find this thing. They're freaking idiots. Eldon fantasizes one last time about everyone cheering for him when he brings the treasure back. And he really hates Scott, dang. And he really likes Margaret. I never got that sense from the first movie. This Indiana Jones moment happens and the treasure falls down to the bottom of the cave. But Eldon did the right thing and saved Almodovar's life. It seems like all hope is lost, but while running his lemonade stand, all the kids in town stop by to give Eldon a bunch of money. Even Almodovar stops by and drops some serious gold on the table.
You saved my life. Why did you do it?
You would have done the same for me.
I would have let you fall.
Man, Al is being seriously honest right here. Isn't this a little awkward, what with the monk and Eldon having previously been tied up by this guy, who just admitted he'd let him fall to his death in front of a gigantic crowd of kids? Well, it doesn't matter, because sadly enough, This was the last ButterCream sequel ever made. So what happened to the wholesome mail order company feature films for families? Well, it turns out when your business model is call every household in America until they cave, eventually the government is going to have some questions. Feature films for families was huge in its prime. Millions of VHS tapes sold, 70,000 orders a week, their own warehouse, their own printing facility. Forrest Baker made an empire. But then they got greedy. They started pretending to be charities. They'd call people and say, "We're just taking a family movie survey." And then suddenly you're getting guilted into buying 3 copies of Rigoletto on DVD. They did this so often, especially through a partnership with a group called the Dove Foundation, that multiple states sued them. Then came the FTC, and brother, the FTC does not F around. Turns out the Triple F made over 117 million illegal calls. They called people on the do not call list. They made robocalls. They pretended to be fundraising for kids, but they were really just hawking yet another copy of The Bewitching of Ben Wagner. By 2016, they were hit with a lawsuit so big that the theoretical fines added up to over $1 trillion. Like Disney buys Star Wars money. For selling no more baths to unsuspecting grandmas. They ended up settling for a cool $45 million. Almost all of that being suspended because the company was basically broke by then. And just like that, the mail order empire crumbled. The VHS tapes stopped, the calls stopped, and the ButterCream Gang rode off into the eternal sunset, never to do chores for free again. If you ever randomly found this movie in your house and thought, where the heck did this come from? Now you know. It was mailed to you by a company that would later be fined by the federal government for moral telemarketing crimes. But you know what? The movies are still nostalgic to me. So there. If you enjoyed this video, hit the subscribe button. And as always, see you next time.